Tropical storm Kate brushes past the Bahamas. Family and friends of Dr. Miles Monroe celebrate his life 1 year after he was killed. A former F&M cabinet minister says Renwood Wells has some explaining to do. Plus, the DNA weighs in on the murder record broken over the weekend. We've got those stories and more coming up tonight. I'm Kyle Joaquin, and NB12 starts right now. Tropical storm Kate, the 11th named storm this hurricane season, is currently making a turn away from the Bahamas. The system, which became a concern just yesterday afternoon, quickly strengthened to a tropical storm within a matter of hours. But residents of the central and southeast Bahamas, still recovering from Hurricane Joaquin, breathed a sigh of relief today as Kate brushed by.
Some rain showers are very possible in those islands, Cat Island, Eleuthera, and the Abacos later on tonight. As far as the winds are concerned, we expect some fresh breezes, some gusty winds in the showers themselves, but the heavier winds would remain to the north and northeast of that system. So,
Deputy Director at the Department of Meteorology, Basil Dean, said only South Abaco should be getting a bit of rain tonight as Tropical Storm Kate makes her move away from the Bahamas. Islands like Eleuthera and Cat Island got a few showers earlier, and in preparation, schools on those islands were closed. Officials at the Met Office, according to Dean, were watching it closely since yesterday afternoon, even before it strengthened into a tropical cyclone.
We've been on the ball from the inception, but again, it's all about timing, depending on what time of the day these systems form. Again, the first set of warnings would have gone out during a nightfall, but fortunately, it's not a rapid intensifying system.
With 20 days left in the 2015 Atlantic hurricane season, Dean described it as an eye-opener. Tropical Storm Kate, similar to Hurricane Joaquin, was a simple system sitting alongside the Bahamas and then quickly intensified.
If we can use this season as the benchmark, that we have not seen this kind of activity that close to our doorsteps in terms of their development. And of course, with Joaquin, the rapid intensification, and that followed by another very powerful system that impacted Mexico.
He was speaking about Hurricane Patricia, which became the strongest tropical cyclone ever in the Western Hemisphere when it slammed into Mexico in late October. Now, as for the response from the Met Office and the National Emergency Management Agency, especially after the backlash from its response to Hurricane Joaquin, NEMA Director Captain Stephen Russell said they had teams on standby since Friday.
They've been meeting with the local disaster councils in the respective islands to make sure that they're in a position to track and monitor the system. And like I said, we had someone here from yesterday or overnight, and we were able to make contact with them first thing in the morning to further enforce the idea that we want them to make sure that they're tracking the system as it made its approach.
Both NEMA and the Met Office were criticized for what many called the lack of warning in preparation for Joaquin. So much so that a cabinet minister called for heads to roll. Russell explained what they did and didn't do differently in preparation for Kate.
People are used to the 72 hours, the 60 hours, the 48 hours, and 36 and 24. That storm did not give persons that timeline. It went from a tropical storm to a Category 4 storm in a matter of 36 hours or less, versus the 72 hours that people are used to. Therefore, they're saying they didn't have sufficient time. But we cannot raise an alert or sound alerts, watches, or warnings until the system is behaving in a certain manner. So what we've done with Joaquin versus what we're doing now is the same protocol.
A yellow flag symbolizing partial activation flew outside NEMA's office earlier today. Russell says while the nation may have been spared this time around, no one should let their guards down. It's been 1 year since that tragic plane crash in Grand Bahama that claimed the lives of 9, including renowned pastor Dr. Miles Monroe. And even a year later, the families of those victims say they are still seeking answers. Simone Davis has the story.
As the family of Dr. Miles and Ruth Monroe and family members of the other victims of the plane crash mark the one-year anniversary of the tragedy, they say the loss has gotten no easier to bear and their lives will never be the same. The Monroes, along with pilot Captain Stanley Thurston, First Officer Farkan Cooper, youth pastors Lavard and Riddell Parks, their son Johannan Parks, and family friend Diego Santiago died in a fiery crash after their plane hit a crane at the Grand Bahama shipyard. Thousands in the Bahamas, as well as those at BFM, which Monroe founded with Pinder, and many throughout the world were impacted by the tragedy, but none were more devastated than the families of the fallen 9. During a ceremony to rename the Diplomat Center in honor of Dr. Monroe, his children, Miles Monroe Jr. and Charissa Monroe, said it has been a long year, but the pain still feels like it happened just yesterday.
Today is the 1-year anniversary of everything, but for me, today is no different than November 10th, 2014. So, I mean, it's a year later, but, you know, it's still a reality that I'm living, that we're living, and it's still something that I kind of deal with every day. But yes, I have been, today, it's been a very busy year. I haven't given myself kind of a chance to, you know, kind of just settle and allow the reality of everything to kind of set in. I don't know if I'm avoiding it. I don't think I'm avoiding it. I just think, you know, it's just been a busy year.
He also gave this tribute to his parents.
The greatest of us is he who is best at serving. They say leadership is measured by how many people serve you. What a tragedy. I say it's measured by how many people you serve. I'm eager to learn, prepared for unforeseen failures, equipped to lead, and anticipating even greater success.
You were born to give to this planet something that only you are carrying.
His sister Charissa said the hardest part about dealing with the loss of their parents is being forced to be strong and carry on their legacy.
The most challenging continues to be managing what I know I have to do now that I have this great responsibility, and then trying to be human about my grieving. I just lost 2 of my parents. Have I really gone through that? And so we've had the challenge of having to work and then having to grieve, and then people expecting us to, you know, we've been so strong and such a pillar of strength for people. We have to kind of keep up to that and live up to that. But still there are times when I just want to burst out crying, but I can't do that. Like today is one of those days where I had to wake up in the morning and say, okay, I'm gonna be strong. I have to be strong for myself. I have to be strong for my brother. I have to be strong for my aunt, who as soon as I start, they start. Everyone starts.
However, she said the most rewarding thing about continuing their family's legacy is the impact her parents had on the world, which makes her very proud.
I think the most rewarding continues to be the stories that we hear about the impact my parents have had on people around the world. Everywhere we go every day, there's someone that has a long story of how they met my dad, or how he impacted them through a book, or just something he may have done by touching them, or just a smile he may have done, or a hug he may have given to someone who doesn't have a father. Those are stories that we continue to hear. And they continue to encourage us as his kids, and encourage us as, you know, it actually makes me want to continue to make him proud, because he continues to make me proud.
BFM pastor Dr. David Burrows said the passing of Dr. Monroe was unexpected, but because he instilled leadership into his members, they were prepared to lead the congregation. Burrows said the past year has been challenging, but they have remained successful in keeping Dr. Monroe's dream alive.
Ironically, in the last year of his life, he kept saying something that we didn't pay attention to in many respects, but he kept saying, I can die now. Now, we didn't expect it to happen, but it reminded us that we have a responsibility to continue this enormous and tremendous vision that he laid down for us. And so this past year, call on everything that we have learned to continue, and to continue successfully.
Miles Jr. and Charissa established the Miles and Ruth Monroe Foundation to ensure that their parents' legacy lives on. They shared their most valuable lessons learned from their father.
One of the things I always try to remember is patience. Patience in everything, and faith. I think his faith taught me a lot. Experiencing his faith taught me a lot. He had faith, and faith to the point where he worried about nothing, because he knew that if God calls for something, God will provide for something. And I mean, people say that, and it may sound cliche, but my dad
determines your decisions and how disciplined you are with your time, with your environment, with your space. You know, sometimes I wondered how my dad was so focused. And now that, again, me and my brother have this great legacy and this responsibility on us, we have to know when to say no. We have to know who's with us and who isn't. We have to know what to do, what decisions to make. And, you know, our vision and our purpose and where we're going is making that easy. There's certain things I can't do anymore, certain places I can't go anymore. And, you know, he always say your vision is going to make you disciplined. Your purpose is going to make you focused.
The pair will be hosting the first annual Monroe Legacy Gala on November 12th at the Atlantis Ballroom to officially celebrate their parents and those who died along with them in the plane crash. For more information on the gala, visit the Miles Monroe International Facebook page. Reporting for NB12, I'm Simone Davis.
Well, delegates, government officials, and tourists also paid tribute to Dr. Miles Monroe during the renaming of the Diplomat Center to the Miles E. Monroe Diplomat Center. Among those in attendance were Governor General Dame Marguerite Pindling, Prime Minister Perry Christie, Tourism Minister Obi Wilchcombe, Opposition Leader Dr. Hubert Minnis, and more. Prime Minister Christie reflected on the life of Dr. Monroe, stating that he was greatly inspired by Monroe, who was definitely a giant of a man.
And I said these verses, put on the full armor of God, so when the day of testing comes, you're able to stand your ground. And when you've done your best to stand, I said, you taught me this. Still stand. And it goes on to expound on the things that Miles Monroe believed in, with the belt of truth wrapped around your waist. Truth, integrity. Your feet made ready by the gospel of peace.
Wilchcombe also stated that he has been inspired by Monroe in many ways and greatly impacted by his death.
Miles Monroe touched me. And so when I saw that day, I could not feel that Miles, who came to me in 2013, said to me that, Obi, Grand Bahama has an economic problem, and I'm going to help turn it around. I'm going to bring the conference to Grand Bahama. And he did in 2013, and last year was to have been the second. It was held. But Miles Monroe's involvement helped turn around Grand Bahama.
Minnis said he learned a lot about leadership from Dr. Monroe, whose personal goal was to transform followers into leaders and leaders into agents of change.
As history has proven, what people engage in, prefer, or claim about themselves before they take on leadership roles is not an infallible indicator of the kinds of leaders they will become. Peter Economy, who calls himself the leadership guy, says that many leaders are competent, but few qualify as remarkable.
In other news, a cabinet minister in the last F&M government has asserted that Bambootown MP Renwood Wells should have been forced to explain his involvement in the letter of intent scandal that rocked the Christie administration last year before he was allowed to join the F&M. Fenton Nemore told NB12 today Wells needs to speak up on the matter immediately. He also revealed that he found out Wells and Dr. Andre Rollins were joining the party when the rest of the country did. Bonnie 2 reports.
Days after Fort Charlotte MP Dr. Andre Rollins and Bambootown MP Renwood Wells joined the Free National Movement, former F&M MP Fenton Nemore is demanding that Wells come clean to the Bahamian people and F&M members on the letter of intent controversy, which led to his dismissal as parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Works. Nemore says Wells should have explained himself before he joined the official opposition, adding that without full transparency, very little separates the F&M from the PLP.
We have individuals who have crossed the floor, which we are thankful for. And many F&Ms are thankful whenever individuals join the organization. But at the same time, we have to give an account to the Bahamian people. The FNM still has questions on the floor of the House of Assembly. We have to explain to you, the voter, as to what the answers of those questions are. And so now that they are members of the organization, I feel that they have a responsibility to express them within the organization. They have a responsibility to come clean with.
Last year, Wells signed an LOI with Stellar Waste to Energy without government authorization for a $600 million waste-to-energy project at the New Providence landfill. Opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis demanded that Wells be fired and has 10 questions on the record of the House of Assembly relating to the LOI. Nemore, who also called for Wells' dismissal, said both the FNM leader and Bambootown MP must account, asserting the FNM was founded on basic principles like transparency and accountability.
We cannot be putting questions on the floor of the House, asking for them to be answered, and then allow those questions to just suddenly disappear. I am not being critical of anyone. All I am saying is that the Bahamian people who are voters need to be addressed in these issues. Otherwise, we're not. If we do not adhere to those principles of the Free National Movement, we're no different than the PLP.
Prime Minister Perry Christie also pointed out that Minnis called for Wells to be fired, insisting that the opposition leader only recruited the 2 former PLP MPs as a move to block other FNM MPs from ousting him. We asked Nemore for his thoughts on that.
I don't agree with Perry Christie. Mr. Christie had an opportunity to explain to the Bahamian people a long time ago. He failed. Now that we have a responsibility, it is up to us to execute, because the Bahamian people expect it of us. And so at the end of the day, yes, we must give an account. The leader must give an account.
Nemore says he feels the process could have been handled differently, and he had no idea Wells and Rollins were joining the FNM. However, he feels they have a lot to offer.
I welcome them. I think they're 2 young men who have been very outspoken. I think that they have an opportunity to contribute to the development of this country. But at the same time, they must recognize that they are joining a new organization, which has its own structure, which has its own principles, and they have to adhere to those principles.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Vonique Tude.